Saturday, I'm going. I mean, not here next month.
Yeah, yeah. Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Bethlehem Planning Commission. My name is Rob Moloski. I'm the chair of the meeting. Other Planning Commission members included my immediate left, Mr. Matt Malozzi, Mr. Tom Barker, Ms. Joy Cohen, and Mr. Eddie Burgos. And this time, please silence your phones, anyone in attendance. We will proceed through today's projects as listed on the agenda. Applicant will have a chance to present their project to the commission as their agenda item is called. Following that presentation, city staff will provide an overview of the city's comments and a recommendation. Then the planning commission members will have an opportunity to direct questions related to the project to both the applicant and city staff. Following planning commission discussion, interested parties will have an opportunity to comment on or ask questions relating to the project. All interested parties will be asked to give their name and address for the record. They shall also sign their name, address, and email address on a sign-in sheet that's provided here at the table. We will adhere to a 5-minute time limit for each member of the public, and each person will have one opportunity to speak. We ask that all comments be related to the project proposal under review, and that all comments be related to the land use issues of that project. Where there are a significant number of interested parties, we ask that you be concise in your testimony and avoid repeating previously made assertions. After all interested parties have had an opportunity to speak, planning commission members will have a final opportunity to deliberate. Review of the planning commission is based on the provisions of the Saldo, zoning ordinances, and other municipal ordinances. Decisions will be based on these ordinances, recommendation of the city staff, pertinent public comment, and the public good. Our first agenda item is the approval of the January 9th, 2025 minutes. Any discussion on the minutes as written? I'll accept the motion at this time.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the Planning Commission from January 9th, 2025.
Motion made, Ms. Cohen. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burgos. Roll, please.
Mr. Malosky.
Yes.
Mr. Malozzi.
Abstain.
Mr. Barker.
Yes.
Ms. Cohen.
Yes.
Mr. Burgos.
Yes.
Motion carries, minutes approved. Our first land development plan review is 1746, 1742, and 1800 Elliott Avenue with the applicant. Please step forward. We'll give you a few minutes to get ready, and then introduce yourself and you may begin.
Hello, Planning Commission. My name is Monty Kelsey. I'm the managing member of R&D Homes, the applicant.
My name's Chris Geary. I'm project engineer with Acela Architects and Engineers. And I believe this plan was before you guys in December of 2024. We had requested a waiver of Elliott Avenue due to the existing roadway slope and the topography of the land, which was granted. So thank you. Just to refresh your memory, these parcels, there's 3 parcels. It's located along the north side of Elliott Avenue between an unopened Craig Avenue and Mount Airy Avenue. And the 3 parcels with the consolidation of Mole Street, which is to the north of the parcel, and Craig Avenue will be 24,000 square feet. And I talked to Kate, who's Monty's attorney. She said that documents are executed and they're waiting on the planning commission to approve the consolidation prior to recording.
All right. Since I'm aware of this, for whatever reason, I think the developer executed the easement already.
Yes,
I conveyed to his attorney that we have to wait on that
until the plans
before we have the approval. But I think you're okay with the form of the easement. So
Yes.
should this be approved tonight, that can follow.
Right, and the consolidation deed too?
Well, I think I'm not sure I've seen that.
Oh, you
but-
haven't
but-
seen the
but
deed?
that is the idea that you'll have a consolidation.
Yeah,
deed.
we have one.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I'm
sure she'll
if,
get it
if
over
I
to
had
you.
seen it, I may not recall, but yes, that's what you're doing.
Understood. Thank you. So the project for this land development is proposing two 2,750 square foot buildings. Each building will have 4 multifamily units in them. And we're going to have associated required parking spaces and stormwater conveyance system and attenuation systems. The Monty is proposing to reconstruct and widen. Yeah, maybe sheet 4, go down. There you go. To meet the ordinance, we're reconstructing Elliott Avenue to the required width, and also adding a sidewalk. That would be the public improvements associated with the project. And also would be extending the water line from Mount Airy all the way to the western property line and adding a fire hydrant. We did receive the February 5th letter, and we believe that the comments are minor and that we can comply with them.
Mr. Geary, before I turn it over to Mr. Pfeiffer with the city staff, I do recall this in December being in front of us, and I think I may have asked one question in particular. It was discussed in detail. I believe in the Elliott Ave, and Mr. Pfeiffer, Mr. Yandam, if I'm wrong, please jump in. At the end of Elliott, where it meets up with Mount Airy, wasn't there discussion of a site issue, a telephone pole had to be removed or replaced? Help me out with that one.
I think I did remember to comment. It was on the previous submission, and the problem was we had the fence coming all the way down there. So one of the comments was the fence inside the sight line. So we looked at the grading a little bit more, and I guess with my architect told me if you have more than 30 inches in height of the wall, then you would need like a protection fence. So at that intersection, we're less than that. So
Okay.
we should be out. We should be okay with the site distance.
Anything to add to that, Mr. Pfeiffer, with that?
Nothing,
Intersection.
nothing as it pertains to that.
Okay. Mr. Pfeiffer, anything from the February 5th memo that needs to be pointed out?
Yes, thank you. This is actually the third time this has been before you. The first was a sketch, and then back in December of last year, the request for the waiver for the street grade was also in front of you, which was approved, recommended for approval. So a couple things here. Under zoning, there is a significant amount of tree growth that's going to be removed as a part of this project. As a result of the project itself, they can't accommodate all the replacement trees. So the city forester has agreed that 37 of those 41 trees may be planted on city-owned property elsewhere. The other item under zoning of note is just to confirm that the buildings do meet the definition of 2.5 story for the district that it's located in. And that the trash and recycling areas are ostensibly screened from view as is required. Under the general notes, we talk about some things that have already been talked about, so I won't belabor them too much. But the critical component is what Attorney Deschler already discussed, that the sanitary sewer easement be executed as a requirement or contingent upon the lot consolidation. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pfeiffer. And Mr. Geary, in terms of the February 5th memo, anything the city pointed out, you and the applicant, you're fine to be in compliance with everything that's on there.
I believe so.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll just need some clarification. I can work with the staff on the one comment, but I don't see any that are outstanding that we can't comply with.
All right. Obviously, that's something in terms of continuing dialogue being ongoing to clarify anything. Is there any questions by any planning commission members for Mr. Geary at this time? Ms. Cohen, sorry.
Thank you. The one comment regarding the zoning item number 2, it talks about the clarification that it's a 2.5 story building and that building elevations would be provided, and I don't see them in the packet. Am I missing them?
I thought I had them in there.
We had them at.
Yeah, I know.
Do we have them?
I can,
Are they in this,
what am I
in the digital format that he may have sent? No?
is
No.
something in there at all?
It was actually Ms. Cohen was that comment number 2 also includes that it was indicated that those were on sheet SP1, but they were not on sheet SP1. So unless this document has changed, we don't have those elevations at this time.
I can definitely provide them. Your Jeff Martison's his architect, and he did have them. We are aware of the
They were
height
submitted to
restriction.
the city. We could provide them to the city again. They are 2.5 stories. They do comply with the zoning.
Did you want to see the facade finishes and form?
I do like to see.
Yeah,
the
that's
facade.
something
If-
usually.
If it's possible, you can email it to us and
I
we
can,
can bring
yeah.
them up.
Yeah, I'll do that tonight. Oh,
I
you
was
can do it
actually
now.
meaning now.
If you have, if you have the
Go ahead,
ability
you
to
can do it
email
then.
them now,
Yeah.
we can project them. Mr. Pfeiffer can put them up. We can
Understood.
project them. So,
You can do that. Nolan.
Ms. Cohen, is that the only question you had at this time?
That was work. Thank you.
Hopefully they can get that sent out. Mr. Malozzi.
You're so thorough. I was just had on my phone.
No, well, I guess one specific comment is the earlier exchange and clarification about an easement and a consolidation deed. Is that sufficiently captured in general comment number 3 on page 2 of the letter? Perhaps this is a question for Mr. Dashler.
Counselor.
Yeah, so for example, on page 1, Public Works Engineering, we have sanitary easement agreement shall be fully executed prior to execution of the developer's agreement. And then yes, on page 2 under general number 3, provide documentation that the applicant has merged the unopened and adjacent portions of Mall Street and Craig Avenue into the consolidated parcel. It's understood that this documentation will be provided in the form of a subdivision plan, lot consolidation, and legal description, and as part of the land development approval. It's always, and maybe some solicitors disagree, but it's always been my feeling, and I think this is an accurate interpretation of the applicable statutes, that where you have an unopened paper street that's been laid out but unopened for more than 21 years, there's really nothing to either vacate or open on the part of the city. By operation of law, that street up to the center line merges with the adjacent property, as has been the case here. So, by operation of law, the property owner has acquired that paper street up to the center line. They're going to file a consolidation deed that essentially captures that absorbed half of the street. The easement agreement is necessary just to confirm that the city has a sanitary sewer line in the street, and that we'll be able to have access to it for any kind of repairs or maintenance. But I do think that's captured specifically under comment 2 on Public Works.
The sanitary sewer easement.
Yeah, and in fact, we have that draft, and as I said, the developers actually signed it. I thank him for that. It's a little premature, but we know that they've agreed to execute the easement.
Thank you.
Mr. Parker.
Yes, sir. So I own the property catty corner to you. I don't know if you saw it, but I'm putting the 4 new townhouses there.
Oop.
And
This one up here, up on Mole Street.
no, it's on Craig Avenue.
Okay, yeah,
It'll be the
okay.
last one.
Down here at the corner of Mount Airy.
No,
North.
Oh, up here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Over
okay,
there.
I see.
okay, so I own that property and I just recently had to widen Craig Avenue, widen the road. So we widened the road and we put the base coat in, and in March, I'm planning on coming in and top coating. Is there anything that I need to know before I top coat it? You have to get into the sanitary or do anything on Craig Avenue to get it
No,
done
the
before
sanitary
I-
will be coming off.
Tom,
Yes.
come on.
What?
I think, to be fair,
Well, I don't want to top coat the road and then they come in, they got to dig it up.
I understand, Mr. Parker. That could be something that quite possibly we can handle on a separate basis between you and the applicant. At that time, I assume that's what Attorney Deschler is concerned about. So if there's any questions pertaining to the project on Elliott Avenue?
Bad question.
No.
I don't want to talk about the road.
Any other questions any planning commission members have at this time? Anyone here in attendance have any questions or comments as it pertains to the land development subdivision plan, Elliott Avenue? Seeing none, just to clarify, Mr. Desher, Attorney Desher, the land development and subdivision plan can all be put in one motion for approval or not, correct?
Yes.
I will entertain a motion at this time.
Chairman Malasky, I'd like to make a motion. And that is to approve the land development and subdivision plan as presented, contingent upon the applicant meeting all of the comments, resolving all the comments included in the city's February 5th, 2025 review letter.
Motion made, Mr. Malozzi. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Barker.
Question?
Yes.
Are we able to put up the renderings in the meantime? I know we have a motion.
Oh, yes,
probably
yes.
seconded,
Come
but,
through and-
Did they come through?
It didn't come through?
Mm-mm.
I mean, if you're amenable to him bringing up his laptop and showing it to you, I don't know how else to.
Do you have
solve
them on the
problem.
laptop?
Yeah, I have it.
Can
on
you
my-
please do that at this time? That'd be great. Thank you, Mr. Malozzi. Yeah, or discussion.
Two and a half stories.
Yeah, you can get.
Mm-mm.
Any elaboration on what materials are being used on the facade? Ms. Cohen, anything to add to that? Are you all right with that? Those materials?
That's fine.
One of the things that we try to implement is a little different variety so it doesn't look plain and bland. So,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
yep, thank you. Any other discussion on
That just
the
gave you-
motion that is the motion that has been made? Any other discussion? Roll, please.
Mr. Malosky,
Yes.
Mr. Malozzi,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Ms. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Burgos.
Thank you. Best of luck moving forward. And if there's any other questions, dialogue that needs to be had by anyone in the city staff, feel
Okay.
free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Craig's been great. So, yeah.
Great. Our next agenda item, land development plan at 1355 Easton Road. Will the applicant please come forward and we'll give you a minute to get ready. And when you're ready, introduce yourself and you may begin.
My name is Laura Eberly. I'm with Ruther Bowen Engineering, and I'm representing the applicant tonight for 1355 Easton Road. There we go. Okay, so the city has actually seen two prior land developments on this property. This property at 1355 Easton Road was actually formerly LVIP 7, lots 53 and 54. As you're looking at the Google Maps image here, you can kind of see that there's a line down the center of the building. So the portion to the left was the original development. I believe that was lot 53 of LVIP 7. And then the building then expanded off to the east and the lots were combined. So at this time tonight, what we're coming in for is a further expansion of the building. So this is the EcoPax Manufacturing Company. They've been successful and need more manufacturing space at their facility. So let me bring up our plans here. Okay, so here you can see the existing condition. Again, the original building on the left side, the second expansion on the right side, and then our building expansion would head off to the north in sort of an L-shaped configuration to continue their manufacturing line. Additionally proposed, we would be taking away some existing loading docks where the two buildings would meet. We're proposing 6 new loading docks at this location on the western end of the building expansion. We would also be adding 12 additional truck parking spaces to provide them with that facility at the site. And the building addition would also remove an existing car parking lot on the site, and we would be replacing those spaces over at this location. The facility already has an existing rail siding that was put in as part of one of the prior land developments. We've had conversations with the city fire chief. This roadway used to come in and connect to the parking and trucking area to the rear of the building. Obviously, with the building expansion, we're taking away that access, but we have made it possible for this road to continue around the back of the building and provide emergency access specifically for the fire department or any other needs to access the back of the building. We have had conversations with the city staff about blocking off this entrance since it will no longer really be accessible to car traffic or employee traffic. That will just become an emergency access for the site. So we can put up some bollards and chains and do not enter signs at that location. So that would only be available for emergency vehicles. The main entrance to the site is off on the western end of the site. There is a driveway that comes in here, accesses the employee parking at this location, would come around and provide access to the new truck parking spaces we're proposing, and then access to the 3 locations of loading docks to the building. So the stormwater management for the site, the Saucon Creek actually runs along the boundary of the site to the northern end here. And this is in a provisional no detention area. So consistent with the prior land development plans, we're not proposing traditional stormwater management like a detention facility. That's not required under the stormwater management ordinance. The history of this site, it's been a slag site for 50 or more years. So essentially most of the site was impervious cover prior to this development. So even with this building addition, it's still a reduction in impervious cover over the historic condition of the site. We are proposing some additional landscaping to the landscaping plan here. Landscaping. So we are proposing additional landscaping around the truck parking area. We do have a couple of trees near the additional car parking area and a few trees at this location here. We are, in order to accommodate the fire access lane around the back of the building, we did have to push the tree line back a little bit. But as you can see from the grading on the site here, this is a fairly steep slope going down to the Saucon Creek. So we are not encroaching on that steep slope. That would be a difficult construct with a fairly significant retaining wall required. So we're staying out of the steep slope and we just have a minor encroachment into the existing tree line that's on the site.
Anything else, Ms. Eberly?
I can talk about the comments that we've received. We did go through one review of staff comments.
Sure.
We've had follow-up conversations with the city engineer regarding the stormwater engineering comments. We understand what they need to see on the plans in order to resolve those comments. I believe that it's just an adjustment to the presentation of the amount of existing and impervious cover on the site. The conclusion of that meeting was that we would not have to change our calculations, so we can revise the plan to include that. There were also some comments from the fire chief, and I spoke with him this afternoon. So we will be adding 2 additional fire hydrants and an expansion to the water line on the site. And I believe that would satisfy the 2 outstanding fire comments that are in the letter. And I believe that all of the rest of the comments we can comply with.
Mr. Pfeiffer, anything to add from the February 6th memo that Ms. Everly just touched upon?
So always nice when the engineer comes super prepared and takes away all my comments. The only other things that I would point out is comments from the EAC, the Environmental Advisory Council, where they're just advocating for green roofs, natural vegetation, rooftop solar using the CPACE program if possible, and of course some concerns about the proximity of this site to the Saucon Creek and trying to find ways so that we limit any kind of runoff from roof or paved areas directly into the creek.
Thank
That's
you,
it.
Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pfeiffer. Any questions from any planning commission members for Mr. Pfeiffer or Ms. Everly here as it pertains to the expansion of eco packs? Ms. Cohen.
Hi. Is the new fire access road one-way, and will a sign be provided at the street entrance to that road?
Yes, it is one way. So it would be an entrance at the street here and then going around the building and exiting into the truck courtyard. So I believe we do have arrows on the plans showing that.
It's very small.
Yes. We can also provide a one-way sign at the entrance.
And then is that only limited to fire access, or is it, would trucks be allowed to enter at that location?
I believe that's going to be limited to fire only, just an emergency access. The tractor trailers servicing the manufacturing facility would not be using that road.
Okay, and then you said that the fire department, fire marshal has approved the width of the fire access road? Is that 15 feet?
Yes,
sufficient for
we
the
did have
fire?
discussions with him about how to fit that access road back there without encroaching on the steep slope. So he was okay with that access. One of the comments he made, let me go back to the site plan here, was that at the entrance, this portion here along the existing building is much wider than 15 feet. It's closer to 29 or 30 feet wide. So what he requested was that this be one of the locations where we put an additional fire hydrant, because that gives the truck some room to operate with the fire hydrant. That also would be within that 500-foot radius that he requested distance between fire hydrants. And so he was okay with the 15-foot access behind the building as long as we added the 2 fire hydrants. So one will be in this location where the road is wider. The other location will be over here in between the truck parking and the new loading docks. So again, the fire truck would have sort of the whole truck courtyard area to park and access that fire hydrant. But he was okay with the 15-foot behind the building.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Malozzi.
Thank you. And the general comments, just to make sure I'm looking at the same thing, number 4A was indicating the method of determining prohibiting vehicle ingress from Easton Road onto the driveway to be served by construction. Is that the driveway plan, right, that we're talking about?
Right. So that would be this driveway here, the
Okay.
eastern access. So this driveway currently you can enter here and then turn left and get right into the truck loading area. So that's the access that would be cut off and it would turn into our fire access lane.
And those were the discussions you had with the chief?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions by the planning commission members? So Ms. Everly, in terms of the February 6th memo, the discussion you've had with our city staff, you're fine, you're in compliance with all their comments and in agreement.
Yes, we can comply with all those comments.
Anyone here in attendance tonight have any questions or comments as it relates to 1355 Easton Road? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Chairman Woloski, I'd like to make a motion to approve the land development plan for 1355 Easton Road, contingent upon meeting all of the requirements stated in the February 6, 2025 city review letter.
Motion made, Mr. Malozzi.
Mr. Melzi, perhaps we can amend the motion to include the applicant's stated agreement to comply with the fire marshal's comments, which I understand is the 2 extra hydrants as opposed to 1, which is in the review letter, right?
Correct. Yes. So when I spoke with him today, we discussed, yes, adding a fire hydrant at the corner over here where the 2 buildings meet, and then 1 closer to the future truck parking.
Okay, Mr. Pfeiffer, I mean, aside from what Ms. Eberly just said, I mean, is there anything in addition to the comments in the review letter that we want to put on the record as part of the conditions for approval?
As it pertains to fire or in general?
As a part, well, I guess as pertains to, well, both, yes.
Yeah, I unfortunately wasn't part of the conversation this afternoon with the fire marshal, nor did I have a chance to meet with him. But if he has expressed that he is satisfied with the location of these 2 fire hydrants, that one was on the original set of plans and it somehow got taken off that set of plans and now it's been put back onto that set of plans, and that the second one is going to be added so that it complies with the fire code, I'm comfortable with what's listed here.
So, Mr. Malozzi, can you amend your motion, Attorney Deschler's request?
To be certain, my understanding then is based on the comments that there will be 2 additional fire hydrants added as part of this application. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Then I would like to amend my motion for approval of the land development plan contingent upon meeting the criteria outlined in the February 6, 2025 city review memo, and to include the addition of a total of 2 fire hydrants as part of this application.
Motion made, Mr. Malozzi. I will second it. Roll, please.
Mr. Malosky,
Yes.
Mr. Malozzi,
Yes.
Mr. Barker,
Yes.
Ms. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Burgos.
Yes. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you
and,
very much.
Best of luck moving forward. Our next land development plan review is 2545 Shanersville Road, Lehigh Valley Health Network. Applicant, please step forward. We'll give you a minute or so to get ready. And when you're ready, introduce yourself and you may begin.
Thank you. My name is Brent Tucker. I'm from the Pidcock Company. I'm the civil land development consultant. I have with me John Bennett, Lehigh Valley Health Network, Vice President of Design and Construction, and my colleague Stuart Pidcock, also from the Pidcock Company. So the Lehigh Valley Health Network is proposing a sizable building addition, primarily to expand their emergency department. The building addition is planned to be adjacent to the existing emergency department. Which is pretty near the helipad, which currently exists out there. I thought initially we'd go through the building program so we understand what's in the emergency department, and then we'll hit the site planning aspects. The building addition is a multi-story building. Here's a rendering. The first floor is primarily the state-of-the-art ED with 83 beds, which is about double the current capacity of the emergency department at Muhlenberg. Of the 83 beds, 69 of those beds are adult beds. 14 beds are dedicated to pediatrics. The north-south tower, which is left to right in the rendering, is a 2-story building element with a mechanical penthouse above. The second story is intended to be shelled with this initial construction, but when completed, it would contain 18 med-surg beds. And the east-west tower is a 3-story tower with the second story planned to be completed with the initial construction to contain 26 med-surg beds. Third story to be shelled initially, also when finished to contain 26 med-surg beds. And then on the roof, we'll have a rooftop helipad. So the helipad's going from the ground up 50 or so feet into the air. So in total, I think we have 153 beds when the facility's totally complete.
How many beds again?
153. A few more than we had on the site plan. The building design's evolving, but the site planning parameters don't really change. The square footage is about the same, parking about the same. The emergency department is accessed through a new entrance on the east face of the building. The upper floors connect through the main chassis of the hospital, and they're accessed through the main entrance to the hospital, the big blue H. So there's no cross contamination for patients between the ED and the upper med-surg floors. There will be obviously the life safety exits and all those things within the building, but patient access is segregated. To the overall. So if we look at the overall, kind of an overall site plan. Yeah. The majority of the campus traffic enters through the north entrance, opposite the 20 or down from the 22 ramp. And they will travel.
Sorry. There we go.
Travel along the main access road to the T intersection, turn left as they do today. But as you get on that loop road after the left turn, today you would continue up into the existing emergency department entrance and parking area, very small parking area.
And that runs parallel to Shanersville.
Right.
Correct.
But that area is being repurposed as the ambulance loading and unloading zone. And we're changing the orientation of the loop road. You can highlight that with the hand, Stuart.
Yeah.
So that we can now travel to the new entrance, to the new entrance of the existing ED, and eliminating another turn that exists today. So that we're switching the through movement there. So that you almost arrive at the emergency department by accident. In front of the access door, we have a right size, very large drop off, very generous, 2-lane drop off. So the patients can have plenty of room to come in if they're in a heightened state of, emergency. Maybe they're transporting a patient in trouble. They've got plenty of room to maneuver, get to the curb, unload their patient. After dropping off, you continue south. The parking is provided on the south side of the building. Right now, there's a medical office building there, as you may be aware. This project intends to demo the medical office building and replace that with parking to serve the emergency department. There's 205 parking spaces in that lot. And that serves just the emergency department, the first floor, 83 beds. You might be aware there's a pretty good grade change there today. We're intending to bring the parking lot up with fill so that we have an appropriate grade for patients to be able to traverse the parking lot, enter the ED, if they have ambulatory problems or otherwise. So that requires site retaining walls around the south side. We also have, there's a retaining wall now along Shanersville. We're replacing that wall with a new wall that's a little longer. And the reason we're doing that is so that we can extend the sidewalk along Shanersville road. And that was a commitment we made with the helipad project. So as part of the helipad project, we committed to a sidewalk along Bathgate and Westgate, which was constructed. And then we said with the next project, we would build sidewalk along Shanersville, and this plan proposes that sidewalk.
Good.
We're also proposing to expand the parking north of the northern MOB there. So in the balance, the parking, the parking now dedicated to the ED doesn't exist today. Obviously, there's some reduction in parking area for campus, general campus parking in that area because of the building addition and the ED parking. We're trying to replace some of that parking with the reconfiguration of the Loop Road and the north parking lot improvement there. We pick up about 120 spaces there. I think in net, we have a reduction of about 22 spaces. But as far as required parking, our required parking is about 1,440 spaces. And campus parking number is 2,730 spaces. So we're well over the required ordinance requirement for parking on the campus. Loading and unloading will happen at the back corner of the building there. And that's served by rebuilding an access road there between the parking lot and the MRI building. Right now, that driveway is pretty narrow and topographically challenged. And we're going to rebuild that, smooth it out, a nice driveway, nice access to the loading. It's also a secondary exit from the parking area. And as we mentioned before, the existing parking lot up there at the ED, that's going to become the ambulance loading and unloading zone. I think currently there's 2, maybe you can squeeze 3 ambulances in the existing drop-off area. We're proposing to reorient that and expand the canopy, to get 6 ambulance loading unloading spaces, and then repurposing the current patient parking to get 6 additional transport ambulance spaces. So big increase in ambulance service area, ambulance capacity. They'll enter as they do today and come through the back of the addition. And that's where the trauma bays sit. So all very well orchestrated there inside the building. The helipad, so the rooftop helipad replaces the ground pad. But during construction, because this is a level 2 trauma center, we need a pad to have a helipad in service. So we're proposing a temporary helipad up in the north parking lot in an area that's underparked today. It shouldn't have much impact on campus parking. Just a ground pad, landing on the existing pavement until the addition is complete, and then it'll be returned to parking. The rooftop helipad, much more complicated system, obviously. That's we have a helipad consultant working with the building team to get that constructed. It does have, in the winter for icing, it does have heat exchangers, and the pad is actually heated, so it doesn't ice it up. There is fire suppression systems up there. You see the little shape maybe in the corner. That's where the elevators will extend above the 3rd story, so that the helipad can load and unload into the elevators and down to the 1st floor emergency care. The helipads require approval by the FAA and the PennDOT Bureau of Aviation. Those applications have been submitted. We actually received the aeronautical, FAA is in charge of the aeronautical clearance. PennDOT Bureau of Aviation is in charge of the flight path obstructions local to the pad. They don't really overlap. So we did receive the FAA aeronautical clearance on the ground pad to the north, the one that's closest to AVE.
That's the temporary.
The temporary, yep. And we haven't received that yet for the lower one, but both permits are required for each pad, and those have been submitted, as I said. Also, your
So you've been in
zoning.
contact with AVE for the temporary one, is that?
Well, we've submitted the applications for both. We've-
Besides, that temporary one's really close to 22, right? That's more.
It is. That's really a good thing, really, because the helicopters tend to travel along the major highways, so they don't interrupt neighborhoods and things like that. So that flight path down 22 and a little jog over into the helipad, it reduces the neighbor complaints and annoyances to them with the helicopter noise.
How long temporary? I mean,
2
depending on
years.
the-
2 years. Building complete in October 2027. Six, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Anything else?
I just wanted to mention that your zoning ordinance does require an additional communication with the airport.
And I see that under,
Yeah, and we've contacted the airport, and we've done this. We did that obviously for the pad that's out there.
right.
We've contacted. I don't have the letter yet, but we're in contact with them. They understand, and we expect to receive that letter. Before we go to construction. Actually, for the north pad, there was. It's kind of interesting. About 20 years ago, we had a helipad licensed up there, and we just never built it. So now we're going to build a temporary pad up there. So there shouldn't be any problems with the aeronautics.
Yeah, 2
Obviously-
years out of it. That's
Yep. Stormwater. Through past projects, we've built capacity into the campus for the stormwater management. This project takes advantage of those capacity improvements that we've made over the years. So this project doesn't specifically require any additional detention facilities or water quality management facilities. We have submitted and are about to receive. We're in the final stages of receiving our MPDS permit. So all the stormwater has been approved by the LVPC, the city, and the MPDS. We do have sign off on technical comments from the conservation district. I can keep going. Are there any questions?
well. If you're anything else you need to highlight before I.
We have obviously a comprehensive landscaping package and lighting package been approved by the city forester. I think we're proposing somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 new plantings here. A lot of those are those ground cover plantings, but still a significant number. The retaining walls, we worked with the staff suggesting some plantings in front of the retaining walls to kind of break up the monotony of those. And we've incorporated that into the plan. Lighting is standard ordinance required lighting, 20-foot poles. And there are no other PennDOT permits required for this project.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Mr. Pfeiffer, anything to add from the February 4th memo?
Very, very little, actually. Mr. Tucker did a great job in capturing pretty much the few remaining comments that we had from that Feb 4 memo. I would just point out that the sidewalk would need an access easement agreement because it's ostensibly on private property. And the EAC did call out some suggestions, one of which I applaud the applicant because they always ask for covered bike racks. And in this case, they've actually put them underneath the canopy. And they recommend or suggest if EV charging stations, or at least the infrastructure for EV charging stations, could be added to the new parking lot. Thank you.
And Mr. Tucker, in terms of the February 4th memo, you're in agreement and everything
Yeah,
that the city
yes,
comes.
yeah. The city staff's been great. We got it down to, I think, some outside agency approvals, and we have no problem, obviously, getting those.
Any questions from planning commission members at this time for Mr. Tucker? Ms. Cohen?
Thank you. I have a couple questions. You said the main entrance with the canopy is for the ambulances only, and then the public is closer to the upper left where they currently go in? Is that true?
Maybe the reverse of that. So the entrance on the east side of the building there with the drop off, that's for patients. That's for
Okay.
patients. And
And-
then where you currently go to the ED today, that will be repurposed as ambulance
Okay,
and greatly expanded in capacity.
thank you. My other two questions are about landscape and sidewalk. So on the southeast corner of the building, you said you had to berm up and the parking lot is quite a bit higher than the road.
That's right.
And so the landscaping shown on your landscaping plan, is that mostly shrubbery with a couple trees or?
I think
what's
it's
along
both trees and shrubbery.
the bank there?
Yes. Trees and shrubs. Let's see. So I don't know if you can, I don't know if, Stuart, can you zoom up in there?
It's LA 2 of 8.
So in the corner there, kind of,
Yep.
as you're traveling, where you see the notation, maybe 6 POs. A PO is a pine tree, spruce tree, actually.
And the little circles?
The little circles would be shrubs, yes.
Okay. And then the grade there is 10 feet up from the,
It varies. I'd say average grade is, 6 or 7 feet. The highest grade differential is 10.
okay. And my other question about the sidewalk, I know you deferred your sidewalk until now. Can you show us the extent of the sidewalk that you're proposing?
Sure. So we connected at the existing ramp there at West Gate and Shanersville Road. Then we continue around the sign, and that actually might look circuitous, but that allows us to get a ADA accessible grade from that ramp. There's quite a bit of grade change here up to the straight section of sidewalk along Shanersville, which parallels our access drive. And that continues to follow the access drive all the way up to the parking lot entrance of the former coordinated health building. All the way up.
Goes off this plan.
Thank you. And the sidewalk that goes to the right of the new emergency building in the upper right corner of the expansion, why is that sidewalk not extended to the parking lot to the north?
Grade problems.
Okay,
We were
so
hoping
someone-
that you could cross over.
Is there a
to-
crosswalk there to get onto the other side?
There is on the south side where there is on the south side.
Okay,
So we thought, ED patients would want to access Westgate and the Westgate Shopping Center. So the natural flow would be sort of to the south of the building. So we put the major crosswalk there, get patients or employees or hospital employees out to the Shanersville sidewalk and down to Westgate Shopping Center.
is it possible to put another crosswalk at the location I just pointed to so that someone who's parked in your new expanded parking lot to the north could get to that parking lot via sidewalk?
Yeah, it's possible. It's actually a high point. It's got good sight distance.
Could you please add a
Yeah,
crosswalk?
we can do
there?
that.
Thank you.
Mr. Piper, is there any questions from the city? Are we
Here, so they can.
have
go
that on
to-
record, Ms. Cohen's request in
That's
terms
not
of
up here,
a crosswalk in the north
not up here.
portion of the,
Yes.
If this isn't big enough, then they can walk.
anything else, Ms. Cohen?
No, that's. it.
Thank you. Mr. Malozzi?
I appreciate the addition of the sidewalk. That was important back when the deferral was granted, and great to see it going in now to make those connections. To circle back, and I may have missed this in your introduction, besides the 83 beds, what for the ED, what are the other beds serving generally?
It's med surge, which is in this case nothing too extreme. It's more general patient care.
Okay.
Do a better explanation.
Yeah, it'll be trauma med surge beds. So we'll support the ED part of it.
Med surge, surgical? Was that?
I'm sorry, yeah,
yeah.
medical surgical.
Okay.
So the general inpatient beds, you'll hear medical surgical. So just inpatient hospital bed, that's.
Thank you. And then with that, since there was some I assume you'll probably get a sewage planning exemption.
Oh yeah, this is
For
sewage
this
planning.
is in
Yeah, that's
Bethlehem,
been
so-
submitted.
Okay, because it's
So we've coordinated with Bob Corby and we've submitted to the city for their sign off. So
how's that going? No.
couple phone calls.
Good for you. And I guess another note on the sidewalk with the crosswalks to the south. I recognize that Lanta's back in the Westgate Shopping Center now with your 105 route, so I would assume that that's going to be like a main point there as well too. So another great reason for the sidewalk connection to be made at the existing pedestrian ramp
That's right.
at
Yeah.
Shanersville Road. So much appreciated.
Yep.
Cool. That's all I've got, sir.
Any other questions by planning commission members at this time? Anyone here in attendance have any comment or questions concerning the LVHN Land Development Plan 2545 Shanersville? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Chairman, I'll make a motion that Planning Commission approve the land development plan for 2545, Shanersville Road, contingent upon meeting the criteria outlined in the city's February 4th, 2025 review letter, and also as the applicant has agreed to add an additional crosswalk north of the property. Do we need to get any more specific about the location of that crosswalk at this time?
Council, is that
Can you scroll down on the plan? I don't know if you just want to identify, right, the crosswalk will extend from the
The
sidewalk on the western side of the driveway, slightly south of the 20 feet, 0-inch BRL designation, right?
It's very specific.
Mr. Tucker, is that correct? Where
That's
the
fine.
hand on the, is that correct?
Yep. That's fine.
It suffices for me.
Motion made, Mr. Malozzi. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Cohen, roll, please.
Mr. Malosky.
Yes.
Mr. Malozzi.
Yes.
Mr. Barker. Ms. Cohen.
Yes.
Mr. Burgos.
Yes.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Looking forward to that. Thank you so much. Thanks. Our next agenda item is a zoning map amendment at 5 West Garrison Street. Give the applicant a moment here.
We have some paper copies. Probably might be a little bit easier to take a look at those. Can I hand those out to the group? Just because I'll be on
Yes,
track with the
please.
page numbers.
Please. Normally, when we have something like this, I allow the city staff first to kind of introduce it. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Pfeiffer. I want to remind everyone, Counselor, if I'm wrong, please intervene. We are passing along a recommendation to City Council on this, correct?
Yes, your obligation under the ordinance is to submit a report containing the commission's recommendation, including any additions or modifications to the original proposal.
Right. So we are simply a recommending body this evening in this capacity. So,
Correct.
Mr. Pfeiffer, I'll let you take the lead and we'll go from there.
Great. I'll just give you a summary of the memo that we issued to you in your packet, followed up by some comments from Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, and then a synopsis of some of the history here. So for the background, and I'll try to keep this brief, I'm sure the applicant's going to go over this in more detail. There are 9 contiguous parcels in the 700 block of North New Street between North Street and Garrison, 7 of which are located in the CB, or Commercial Central Business District. The remaining 2, the subject of tonight's discussion, are in the RT, or High Density Residential. This project was brought to you back in 2019, so there should be some familiarity with it. The request was at the same time for the same thing. This was supported by the Planning Bureau, supported by the Planning Commission as a favorable recommendation, and it was ultimately denied by City Council. The applicant has come back with a plan that they feel is more in keeping with the context of the neighborhood and in relationship to what could be built in the CB district as to what is being proposed to be built. Some discussion points. Currently 11 and 15 West Garrison Street are 2.5-story detached dwellings, one containing 2 units, the other one containing 1. The applicant is proposing a 5 to 6-story building, and I say 5 to 6 because of the slope of the topography. It would be 5 at the southern end and 6 at the northern end. The building would average 60 feet across that grade, contain 70 dwelling units and 85 off-street parking spaces, as well as 8,350 gross square feet of commercial space fronting North New Street. The difference between the 2019 and the 2025 proposals: 1, the number of proposed underground parking spaces has increased from 72 to 85 spaces. The total number of residential units has decreased from 72 to 70 units. The current proposal calls for a 35-35 split of those units between 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom, whereas the previous was a 52-20, 52 1-bedroom and 20 2-bedroom. Some of the findings. The city's zoning ordinance includes provisions to address transition between commercial and residential zones. Those include rear yard setbacks. Currently, that increases from 0 feet to 20. It also includes buffering, and the height of the building is limited to no more than 75 feet in that 60 feet adjacent to the residential district. This dating back to, so here's some history, dating back to at least 1955, these parcels were zoned as commercial. The designation back in that date was C1. Today we call it our Commercial Central Business District, and that area stretched from the core downtown to north of Union Boulevard. In the early 2000s, the city proposed changes to the zoning map in the area to limit the overall size of the Central Business District. This was done particularly to focus more of the development in the downtown core. And subsequently, some of the more residential properties were rezoned to RT, and the area along Union Boulevard rezoned to CL, or limited commercial. The 2008 comprehensive plan designates this entire area between North Street and Union Boulevard west of New Street as commercial neighborhood, which is similar to that CL district. North and Garrison Streets are designated local streets, whereas North New is a collector street, North New having a much significantly greater right-of-way width of 80 feet than the other 2. It's interesting to note that none of these parcels are in an historic district. Staff's conclusions: that area has fluctuated at the transition between commercial and high-density residential zoning areas for over multiple decades. Planning Commission can consider the presentation as to the proposed project and any alternatives that could be built by right if zoning is denied. The transitional nature of this block, transitional provisions between the CB and RT will apply, as has been applied previously. The advantage of the proposal is that it also includes a completion of the streetscape. As you may have recalled, about 5 years ago, there was a sinkhole which caused some teeth in the smile to be knocked out along North New Street. The Planning Commission is and then I'll just conclude to reiterate that the Planning Commission is a recommending body to City Council who will ultimately vote on this zoning map amendment request. The comments from the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, they do call out, and we give them kudos for this, that Lanta does provide service along North New Street, and that they also provide service along Union Boulevard, thus making this a very accessible location for multiple modes of transportation. They conclude that the proposal to rezone the subject properties aligns with future LV, the regional plan, by facilitating mixed-use infill opportunities in areas where additional development can be accommodated. And they cite their policies 4.5, 4.6, 5.2, and policy 1.4. To go back in time a little bit, back to 2019, our recommendation then is similar to our recommendation now, and for similar reasons. And with that, I'll wrap it up and take any questions that you might have, or if you want to.
I'll thank you, Mr. Pfeiffer. I'm going to turn it over to the applicant, allow them to introduce himself and elaborate on anything that Mr. Pfeiffer touched upon and talk a little bit about your plan.
Thank you. So we filed, I'm Michael Verschutti on behalf of the applicant. The petitioner filed a petition on December 30th, petition with City Council to rezone the two parcels at 11 and 15 West Garrison Street. Petitioner's BPG Investments 2. The two of their principals are Gabe Moyer and Drew Moyer. They're both here today, along with Vince Marucci, their architect. Mr. Pfeiffer summed up everything pretty much, took what I was going to say here. So they do own the 9 parcels. This was before you in 2019 with a different developer at the time. He passed away. These guys bought the parcels from him and his estate before he passed away, some of them. They're proposing a mixed-use project on the site. They're going to submit a land development and subdivision plan that would go through the whole planning review process with the city and come back before you. They're seeking to consolidate the parcels into one parcel to do the building. So to do that, they're seeking to rezone the 2 parcels that we're seeking today. Just kind of, they have a conceptual plan here. Again, as you know, this isn't a final plan by any means. It'll go through the whole planning process. Once engineering and surveying get done, there could be some modifications to the plan. But as Mr. Pfeiffer said, it's a proposed 70-unit building, mix of 35 2-bedrooms, 35 1-bedrooms. And I think everything else was covered. The only thing we did not get the comments from the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission. So Mr. Pfeiffer, can you forward those to me at some point?
Yes.
Okay. They must have just came in recently then. And then Gabe Moyer has a presentation to kind of walk through. Just one thing I'd tell you, when they first bought this project, the intent wasn't to go back and try to rezone these parcels, but once they were kind of working through a building on the existing that they could do, the efficiencies and the flow of the building just made sense to come back and try to do this. So, and just to kind of note, we did work with the city on this. We met with, I think, Ms. Heller and Mr. Pfeiffer, I think it was back in September or October. We went with Mr. Collins and Mr. Reynolds, Mayor Reynolds, on this, I think in late October, early November. So we did kind of walk through the project and got some good feedback from them that before we submitted everything. So
thank you, Mr. Raschuti.
And
Sure. My name is Gabe Moyer. I'm a principal with Bethlehem Property Group LLC, which is acting as a developer and representing the applicant, BPG Investments 2 LLC. So BPG Investments 2 LLC owns 9 contiguous parcels in North Bethlehem, and we're here today to seek rezoning of 2 of those 9 properties owned by BPG Investments 2 to hopefully construct what we think is the optimal building for the city of Bethlehem and also the community more broadly. So I'll just kind of go through a little bit more, provide some context. A lot of what I'll touch on was largely covered by Craig, so thank you. But maybe just to add some more context and kind of point to some of the pictures we have here to give the group a little bit better feel might be helpful. If we can go to the second page, which is up on the screen, should be page 2 in the handout I provided. You're looking at the site plan, which shows the 9 properties we're reviewing that make up the entire site. 7 of those properties currently zoned commercial business. They're outlined in blue. And then the 2 properties that we are seeking to have rezoned are outlined in green, which would be the 11 to 15 West Garrison. And the table on the right-hand side just gives a little more detail about the size of those properties and what percentage they are of the total site. For the group, for the quick math, the 2 parcels equate to about 18% of the entire site. If you go to the next page, page 3, this is just a quick overview of the location where the site is in North Bethlehem on the 700 block of North New Street. The red box calling out where that is specifically on the map above. And we have 2 photos. That top picture is taken from the northern end on the corner of North New Street and West Garrison Street. And the bottom picture is taken from the southern side, the corner of North New Street and West North Street. Kind of moving on to page 4. This is just the 2 kind of projects that we are considering. The image on the left would be the one that we're going to be recommending we pursue, which will require rezoning of 11 and 15 West Garrison Street. And the building on the right would be the one we would intend to pursue, which we're calling the alternative building, which is allowed today by right and would just take place on the commercial business parcels. Even though we are looking at, just the site in particular, we just thought for transparency, it's helpful for the group to really see what we're intending to do with the property. So that's why we're kind of providing more color there. Moving over to page 5, this would be the 70-unit alternative plan. So, and these plans would just utilize the currently zoned CB parcels, so the 7 of 9 parcels. When we bought the properties from the previous owner and began to draft plans for those 7 parcels currently zoned commercial business, this is what we thought would be the most optimal building. It would be 7 feet and 4 inches for an average height, have a little over 5,000 square feet of commercial space on the ground floor, 45 parking spaces, and a standard facade and exterior features. This is conceptually what we would intend to pursue if we don't have the rezoning granted. And as we began to go through these alternative plans, we were aware of the prior plans that the previous owner had for what I will show you in just a moment. And the previous owner was an architect by trade, and a lot of what he had put together just made a ton of sense. So we picked those up. The unfortunate thing is they would require a rezoning, but we did take a look at those plans, and that's what you're seeing on the next page, which would be page 6. So this is a rendering of the recommended 70-unit building. This largely looks like what the prior plans contain, but there are some differences, which I'll just call out. In this building, it's a bit shorter. It's 60 feet in terms of its average height, has a bit more commercial square footage along New Street, and more parking with 85 parking spaces and enhanced facade and exterior features. It's important to note that we would intend to have just the commercial space along New Street with apartment units above that. And then, as it was mentioned, and for those that may be aware about the prior application, there were some material changes we made on the back of comments that we received and listened to from those prior hearings on those plans. The first one would be that our plans, and one adjustment was to increase the amount of parking spaces. So And our plans here, we are calling for 85 parking spaces, which are 13 more than the original plans. We moved our mix to have more 2-bedroom units as opposed to studio units. So there'd be a 35-35 split. And there, in addition to that, not pictured here, but we can look at the appendix if the group would like thereafter. There's a step down on Garrison Street. So we actually cut the unit count down by 2, from 72 units to 70 units versus the original plan, to make the building flow into the Garrison Street neighborhood just that much better. And all of these were based on community feedback for what came on the back of some of the prior hearings. So I'll just close then on page 8, which shows a side-by-side of the 2 projects we are considering pursuing. They're both 70-unit buildings, but if 11 and 15 West Garrison Street are rezoned, we believe we can construct just a much more efficient building that incorporates community feedback for lower building height, adequate parking, enhanced appearance. We've done a lot of work behind this, including putting together multiple sets of plans that we truly believe the recommended one is the better option for the group. Attorney Raschudi's here, I'm here, and our project architect is here, Vincent Marucci, as well with Drew Moyer. And, we just appreciate your consideration. Happy to take any questions.
Remind me, because I know it's been obviously 6 years since I recall this project kind of coming in front of us for the similar. Talk to me about 11 and 15 Garrison. What's 2 homes are there now? Occupied, not occupied, demoed? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yep, there are 2 homes presently right now. 11 West Garrison is closer to New Street. That is a 2-unit building that's currently occupied. They are our tenants, and then 15 West Garrison is currently vacant and in a varying degree of disrepair. That needs quite a bit of work.
All right, but 11 is
Presently
being rented.
It is, and maybe it's important to note that the majority of our we have good relationships with our tenants. We also manage all of the properties here, there as well, and the majority of them are on month-to-month leases. So our intent would be to give substantial lead time, obviously, before any project were to take place.
Was there any discussion, whether with the city staff or your architect and your partner, in terms of possibly trying to salvage those 2 units and work around it, or is that something that you feel is necessary to demo?
If we were to work around them, that would essentially be the alternative plan we described, which we just think which you're seeing up on the screen. So that'd be page 11. The building would just have to be shaped differently, and we would lose quite a bit of the parking, and we'd gain some height. So we think it would just be better to take those down and utilize those parcels.
It would also lose retail if they did without the 11 and 15 parcels. They built the building without that. Additionally, 11 and 15 are non-conforming lots as they are right now. So if they wanted to do anything new or improve those lots by themselves, it would require some substantial zoning relief for parking and setbacks and lot size. And we do have that noted on Appendix D, I think.
Yeah, Appendix D, page 13. I mean, I think that's a function of the fact that the zoning changed in 2005. So those 2 parcels in green are currently non-conforming parcels in the RT district. And actually, I'm pulling some notes from what the previous owner had done when he took a look at this, and essentially they don't meet a lot of the requirements of the district today. So if any redevelopment were to take place there, it'd be pretty onerous in the amount of what would have to be done to make any adjustments. So I think there's that hardship, kind of argues a consolidation with the other parcels to allow for the entire site to be redeveloped.
Thank you. Any questions from the planning commission for either Mr. Moyer or Mr. Rashudi? Anyone? Mr. Malozzi? Yeah.
Question, and this may be for the benefit of your future presentations on this to other governing bodies, but I noticed on your page 7, which is a nice breakout of the potential community benefits here, which is obviously important. Do you know the difference between the current tax revenue on these parcels and what you've proposed here?
Yeah, you're probably looking at a nearly a tenfold increase total across the board.
Thank you. And you talked about, I think the question from Mr. Malosky got to my question. So that it's the 11 and 15 change the shape of the building so it impacts your parking levels. Is that correct? And then unit counts, and that's why the building would be higher, I assume, to accommodate the loss that chunk that's 11 and 15 out of the development.
Yeah, that's right. In our analysis, we're really shooting for a 70 unit building. Because we believe at that point, that's where it becomes the economics work to pursue the building. So that's what we intend to pursue. So if we look at how we can actually construct 70 units, then that kind of holds us to having to increase the height. If the footprint is smaller, then we can't utilize 11 and 15 West Garrison.
Thank you.
Ms. Cohen?
The properties to the west of Lot 15 and also Lot 14 on the south, are those currently RT?
To the west, yeah,
Up the page on this drawing.
I'd be like up here.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're currently RT.
And next to Lot 14 on the left, upper left.
No, that's CB all the way down North Street
is CB.
towards Dardo's, going down that. That's all CB. When the zoning changed on those parcels, and Mr. Pfeiffer can probably attest to this better than I can, but kind of created an island of RT surrounded by CB and CL on Union Boulevard. So there's, I'm going to guess, maybe 18 to 20 parcels along Garrison Street on both sides that are RT at this point.
Thank you.
I think our estimate's about 80% of them are rental properties.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen. Any other questions, comments, planning commission members? As there, and again, I don't recall a reason council denied it last time. I'm not certain.
It was a 4-3 vote. I'll say the deciding vote was Mayor Reynolds when he was on council. I think that night, if we went back, we watched the video. I don't think Vince, you may have been there. But none of us were there at the time for the part. There was a lot of, there was one person who lived in one of the buildings that Mr. Connell owned, who kind of got some of the neighbors organized.
Mr. Connell, the previous owner.
Yeah. Got some of the neighbors organized, and they came out and spoke at public meeting. And sometimes, like public bodies do, they're swayed by the public comment at the time. And I think that's probably why it was, like I said, a 4-3 vote. And
obviously it's unfortunate Mr. Connell is no longer with us, but I would assume that possibly if this continues to progress and is approved, is there an opportunity to create some dialogue, charrette, if you will, with the community members in that area to just kind of get their feedback? I know that a lot of times that helps. Certainly, we are in a housing situation, and we want to provide attainable housing, and this is obviously checking that box. But being a kind of an infill deal at Garrison Street, I'm certain that that's going to be something you're going to have to approach.
We have worked. I mean, so we're meeting with some city council people. They've met with the North Side Alive group to try to talk about the streetscape. Some of the neighboring parcels, especially like across the street, the New Street pub owner, they support this. They think it's good for the neighborhood. There's some business owners on New Street who are happy about seeing some development and some, like I said, as Mr. Pfeiffer's noted, there's some teeth missing here from the sinkhole that was several years ago. So this also kind of gives them an opportunity to open up the land, make sure that was fixed correctly when they're doing this, and so there are some other benefits here. But the neighborhood, and Ms. Moore could speak more about that, but they've talked to their neighbors about this.
Yeah, that's right. We can absolutely keep the dialogue going. And I think in addition to that, we did make some pretty significant adjustments based on the feedback to the original plans back in 2019. So the comments that were predominantly pointed to at that point were parking, having housing that promotes more permanency, something that flows into the neighborhood. And these are all things that we did take into consideration by adding more parking, increasing the unit mix to include more 2 bedrooms, which should reduce the amount of kind of transient renter base. And then in addition to that, we put a step down in place to make it flow into the neighborhood a bit better.
How many first floor retail opportunities do you see with this?
We imagine about maybe 4 or so. We'd expect kind of your corner stores, coffee shops, that type of thing, things to service the local community.
Not that it's not appropriate to discuss what the specific proposals are, but just so the commission members recall, right? We are talking about a zoning map change, and not that it's inappropriate to talk about the particular use that's proposed, but it is also, I think, appropriate to discuss the general shift from the RT to the CB, because obviously the zoning change is not conditioned on the approval of any particular project.
Right.
And I agree with Attorney Deschler, so I made the point. This is more of a concept plan. This is, I think, we're trying to just be transparent with what the intent of the developers are here. But there's nothing locked in with this. I mean, it's going to go through the formal land development process, and we'll go through city approvals and all that. So,
any other questions or comments for the applicant? So again, I'll remind everyone, and we are simply a recommending body this evening. Certainly, Mr. Moyer, you've put a lot of time and energy into trying to tweak possibly what the original owner had. The parking is a big component. From what I recall last time, there were some concerns with that. And obviously with being underground and 85, is that what it was? 85 spots, matching what we look for. I would support it again, but we are simply just the recommending body to our council. So unless there's no other discussion, I'll entertain a recommendation that Ms. Sebesta can get that on record, and then we can pass along to our council.
Chairman Malosky, I'd like to make a motion that the Planning Commission offer a positive recommendation to City Council and specifically recommend that they approve the petition on behalf of the applicant for the zoning map change of 11 and 15 West Garrison Street from high-density residential to commercial central business district, as stated in their December 30th petition to the city.
Motion made, Mr. Malozzi. Do we have a second? Second, Mr. Barker. Roll, please.
Mr. Malosky.
Yes.
Mr. Malozzi.
Yes.
Mr. Barker.
Yes.
Ms. Cohen.
Yes.
Mr. Barker.
Mr. Burgos.
Mr. Burgos.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate the time and energy you put in, and we look forward to having you come back for the plan, and best of luck moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Pfeiffer, we have our annual report. We'll turn it over to you. Our 2024 annual report.
Thank you. So the work of the Planning and Zoning Bureau continues. As you can see, we have kept ourselves quite busy in the previous year. I'm just going to highlight a few things. One is a typo. So the Planning Commission actually held 12 meetings in 2024 where it says inadvertently 10. Of the many cases that you heard, probably some of the more significant: curative amendment, text amendment, and a map amendment. Of your more significant projects that came to you, 33 West Walnut Street, which was the Bethlehem Parking Authority's replacement of that parking garage, and 2300 City Line Road, which is an expansion to Bosch Rexroth. Zoning Hearing Board also heard quite a few cases, most significantly the Eastern Gateway. If you're not familiar with the Eastern Gateway, that's right at 4th and 412, and that is the site to be redeveloped at the former Salaji Fuel. Also, they heard the Alley House initiative in concert with Lehigh University to create an Alley House prototype. The HARB and HCC also heard a significant amount of projects, 46 by the HARB and 32 by the HCC. And with the addition of some planning staff, we've been able to undertake some additional projects, and those special projects, well, they're all special. They include the reconnection or the connection of our Greenway into Hellertown, which ultimately takes you down to Quakertown. So that just under mile link has been or is in the process of being acquired. We are undertaking a Parks and Recreation Master Plan, a complete streets plan. We continue with the Broad Street activation, although some of that funding is currently in question. Housing remains a significant priority of this administration, and we continue to work to find solutions to the housing crisis. And I think we're leading the Lehigh Valley region in some of our creativity. Of course, we still implement things that we have done in the past. So I always joke that really good plans typically go on shelves to die. Our climate action plan is not that case. We have active committees that continue to push for those, and you'll always see the CAP listed in both review letters and in the EAC letters. Referenced here tonight, Northside Live is meeting on a regular basis and continuing to do improvement projects throughout that region. Similarly, Southside Tomorrow, and that pretty much rounds out our special projects.
Any questions for Mr. Pfeiffer? Thank you, Mr. Pfeiffer, on the annual report. Any questions? Ms. Cohen?
Thank you. Is it correct that Bethlehem has not yet implemented affordable housing requirement in these apartments that are coming towards us? It's only a recommendation?
It's correct. So we have incentives in our zoning ordinance for workforce housing, but as of right now, they're just recommendations.
So something that like this, that's in a highly rented neighborhood, might be an excellent location for potential affordable housing in the mix if it was mandated.
In all of our review letters, you'll see that first comment in there, and where we try to encourage, I believe it's 20%, but don't quote me on that percentage of the units be 80% AMI. So it's a request, and it's a request that comes not without any weight. This is a mayor's initiative. So the mayor will oftentimes, when he meets with developers, bring this up as one of the first comments.
And is there any incentive for the developers to do that besides the recommendation?
There are some financial, but it comes with federal funding.
I know in Philadelphia, for example, they allow you, if you put a certain percentage of affordable housing in, you can then increase your building area or your building height or something like that.
And
allows
that
them
is
to do-
almost verbatim out of the zoning ordinance. So we do have that as an incentive. Unfortunately, in my tenure here, I have not seen anybody take advantage of that.
Is that something, Craig, that I know we've discussed, Attorney Desher, the saldo analysis and looking at that? Is that something Ms. Cohen had mentioned, possibly adding that into our saldo? Is that something that's kind of ongoing? I mean,
Well, I think
density is probably the biggest,
Yeah, I mean, Darlene forwarded the saldo revisions to everyone right before she left. We have them in a kind of teed up to be placed on an upcoming agenda, I believe.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
And
So
so we'll be getting that
Right. Yes.
within the year, I would think, right? I mean, we talked about that
We have it
last.
coming to you possibly in March.
Okay, good. I'm sorry.
They do not include the types of provisions that we're discussing now. I mean, like Craig said, we have things in the zoning ordinance, and it's probably more appropriate that they be there as
Right.
opposed to in the saldo.
Right. Yeah.
If they allow an extra.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the annual report for Mr. Pfeiffer? Craig, good job. We appreciate all the work and energy for that. Any other general comments?
Just the summary of upcoming planning commission agendas. Obviously, some of these were heard tonight, so they're going to be coming off. We just need to adjust Elliott Avenue will be coming off. That one was to expire on the 3rd of March. 608 Pierce Street, that date is the day after the March Planning Commission meeting, so that will most likely be heard at your March meeting. The 1355 Easton Road, that's EcoPax. You heard that this evening, so that will be coming off, as will 2545 Shanersville Road, Lehigh Valley Health Network. That will also be coming off. And then if you look down, there's one that has a 2501 Creek Road, an expiration of 2/12. There's actually really not an expiration on that. It's a sketch subdivision plan, and we have provided comments to that property owner. We have not heard back yet from that property owner. The one other thing that I wanted to mention, this is seemingly now a popular topic, but you will also have a zoning map amendment coming to you in March. And that zoning map amendment is for a sliver of land that is north of Martin Court to the west of 8th Avenue. And that's part of a potential project where the property owner is going to consolidate those two parcels. And they're requesting a zoning map amendment from CG. I'm sorry, it's CMU, which is our commercial mixed use, to commercial general.
And that'll be on the March agenda.
That is correct.
Anything else?
That's everything from staff.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. So move. Second, Mr. Malozzi, all in favor? Aye. See you next month. Thank you.